The scream tore through hyperspace like a knife through silk. Bridget O'Malley woke up to the sound of 14 comm channels dying at once. Her freighter's control panel lit up like a panic attack, alarms shrieking, red lights painting the cockpit in strobing chaos. She rolled out of her sleeping nook, hit the floor hard, and swore. "What the hell?" The sound came again. Not through the speakers this time. Through her skull. A howl. Psychic. Desperate. Raw grief turned into a weapon that punched through shielding and sanity alike. Bridget clapped her hands over her ears even though it wouldn't help. The sound wasn't external. It was inside. And then it stopped. Her ears rang. Her head throbbed. The control panel flickered. Half the systems rebooting after whatever electromagnetic nightmare had just fried them. "Okay," she muttered, pulling herself into the pilot's chair. Okay. That was new. The lazy Sunday wasn't much to look at. A decades-old Cormorant-class freighter held together by spite, duct tape, and one very stubborn engineer who refused to let her die. Bridget had been hauling medical supplies from Outpost Devlin to the colony on Thresh 9. Boring work. Safe work. The kind of job that didn't involve psychic screaming. Her comm array came back online with a stutter. Immediately, it exploded. Distress signals. Dozens of them. All in languages she didn't speak. All broadcasting on emergency frequencies. Virkai military codes. Panic. Fury. Coordinates she didn't recognize. "Not my problem," Bridget said out loud, because saying it made it more true. She reached for the volume knob. Then her hull scanner beeped. She froze. Something was attached to her cargo bay. Something that hadn't been there an hour ago when she'd gone to sleep. Bridget pulled up the external camera feed. The image was grainy, backlit by the distant glow of a nebula, but clear enough. A life pod. Small. Sleek. Magnetic clamps locked onto her starboard hull like a parasite. "You've got to be kidding me." She stared at it for a long moment. Weighed her options. Ignored it, and kept flying. Jettison it, and pretend she never saw anything. Or, terrible idea, she told herself. She was already pulling on her boots. The cargo bay was cold. Bridget's breath misted in the air as she cycled the airlock, magnetic boots clanking against the deck. The pod sat in the middle of the bay like an accusation, silver and black, etched with symbols she didn't recognize. No radiation, no biological hazards, just a blinking green light that meant whatever was inside was still alive. "This is how people die in horror vids," Bridget muttered. She popped the seal. The pod hissed open, releasing a puff of vapor. Inside, wrapped in thermal cloth that shimmered like liquid starlight, was a baby. A baby. 6 limbs, each one ending in tiny claws. Crystalline fur that caught the light and scattered it in rainbows. Eyes, violet, glowing, wet with tears, staring up at her. And the noise. Oh, the noise. The baby opened its mouth and shrieked. Not a normal cry. This was the sound of a violin being fed into a wood chipper. High-pitched, oscillating, psychic around the edges in a way that made Bridget's teeth ache. Okay, hey! She reached down, awkward, unsure. She'd never held a baby before. Didn't particularly want to start now. The moment her hands touched the thermal cloth, the baby stopped crying. Just like that. Silence. It grabbed her thumb with 2 of its tiny paws, hands, and made a soft, cooing sound. Its eyes blinked slowly, once, twice. Then it yawned, showing a mouth full of way too many teeth for something this small, and fell asleep. Bridget stood there, frozen, holding an alien infant in her cargo bay. "Oh no," she whispered. No. I am not getting involved in space politics." The universe disagreed. Her freighter shuddered. Proximity alarms screamed. Bridget looked up just in time to see 3 warships decloak around her, massive and sleek and bristling with enough weapons to vaporize a small moon. Virkai destroyers, Pack Hunter class, military. Her radio crackled to life. A voice, deep, growling, barely contained fury, snarled in accented universal standard. "Return the heir." Bridget looked down at the sleeping baby in her arms. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." They didn't wait for permission. The first boarding clamp hit her hull with a metallic thunk that rattled her bones. Then the second. Then the third. Bridget barely had time to set the baby down, gently, because she wasn't a monster, before armed soldiers came pouring through her airlock. Virkai, 7 feet tall on average, covered in fur that ranged from silver to black to something in between. Digitigrade legs, claws that could shred steel, eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. They moved like wolves, all coiled muscle and predatory grace, and every single one of them had a weapon pointed at her. "Hands up!" one of them barked. Bridget raised her hands, slowly. "Hi. Funny story." "Where's the heir?" She jerked her head toward the pod. "Right there. Sleeping. I didn't take him. He was stuck to my hull, and I opened the pod and—" One of the soldiers moved toward the baby. Bridget stepped in front of him without thinking. "Careful," she said. "He just stopped crying." The soldier stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Then the airlock cycled again, and the temperature in the room dropped. He was enormous. 9 feet of muscle and fur and barely restrained violence. Silver-black coat, streaked with scars. Eyes like molten gold, burning with grief and rage and something worse. Hope, desperate and fragile and ready to shatter. Kael'thor, alpha of the Virkai pack, stepped into Bridget's cargo bay and froze. His gaze locked onto the pod, the sleeping infant inside. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Kael'thor crossed the distance in 3 strides, dropped to his knees, and reached for his son. Bridget cleared her throat. "So, does he have a return policy or—" Every weapon in the room swiveled toward her. Kael'thor's second in command, a scarred female with white fur and murder in her eyes, raised her rifle. "Silence, human." The baby stirred, made a soft, unhappy sound. Every Virkai in the room went statue still. Kael'thor's hand hovered over his son, trembling. "Torin." The baby whimpered, started to cry. And Bridget, because she was an idiot with no sense of self-preservation, scooped him up before the screaming could start. Torin stopped mid-breath, blinked up at her, and went quiet. The cargo bay was silent. Kael'thor stared at her, at his son, sleeping peacefully in a human's arms. "What?" he said slowly. "Did you do?" Bridget looked down at the baby, back up at the 9-foot alien warlord surrounded by armed soldiers. "I literally just stood here," she said, and realized with creeping horror that she was holding the galaxy's most dangerous leverage. "Give him to me." Kael'thor's voice was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that came before violence. Bridget looked down at the sleeping baby, back up at the alpha. "Yeah, sure, here." She held Torin out carefully, supporting his head the way she'd seen people do in vids. Kael'thor took him with a gentleness that didn't match his size, cradling his son against his chest. His whole body shook. "Torin," he whispered. "My son." The baby's eyes opened. Glowing violet, unfocused, confused. He looked up at his father's face, grief-stricken, desperate, terrified, and his tiny mouth opened. The scream hit like a shockwave. Psychic, physical, both at once. The same howl that had woken Bridget across 8 light years, concentrated into the space of a cargo bay. Every Virkai in the room staggered. 2 dropped to their knees. The white-furred second-in-command pressed a clawed hand to her ear, and it came away bloody. Kael'thor stood frozen, holding his screaming son, looking like his world was ending all over again. Bridget didn't think. She just moved. Grabbed Torin out of Kael'thor's arms, pulled him against her chest, and the screaming stopped. Just like that. Silence crashed down like a weight. Torin made a soft, happy sound and nuzzled into her jacket, one tiny paw kneading at the fabric. His eyes drifted closed. He started to purr. Bridget stood there, holding an alien prince, surrounded by armed soldiers who looked like they'd just witnessed a miracle. Kael'thor stared at her. "What?" His voice cracked. "What did you do?" Bridget shifted Torin's weight awkwardly. "I literally just stood here. That's impossible." "Yeah, well, tell him that." Kael'thor took a step forward. Stopped. His claws flexed at his sides. "He should not. He's never. Maybe he just likes me?" Bridget tried to smile. It felt wrong. Kids are weird like that. "He is the heir to the Virkai throne," the white-furred soldier snarled. "He does not like random humans. Apparently this one does." Kael'thor held up a hand. The soldier fell silent immediately. "Healer. Now." The healer arrived within minutes, an older Virkai with gray-streaked fur and kind eyes that went wide the moment she saw Bridget holding Torin. She pulled out a scanner, muttering in her own language, ran it over the baby, over Bridget, stopped, ran it again. Then she went very, very still. "Alpha," she said quietly. "We need to speak, privately." "Say it here." The healer hesitated, glanced at Bridget, back to Kael'thor. "He's imprinted on her." The cargo bay went silent. "Impossible," Kael'thor said. "I've confirmed it 3 times. Torin has formed a surrogate pack bond with the human. It's a biological failsafe. When infants are separated from family during extreme trauma, they can imprint on the first being that provides safety and comfort." Kael'thor's jaw tightened. "That only works within the pack." "It's supposed to," the healer agreed. "But the scans don't lie. His neural chemistry has synchronized with hers. Heart rate, breathing patterns, even brainwave activity. He recognizes her as pack." Bridget blinked. "Wait, what?" "It's never happened with an alien before," the healer continued. "Cross-species imprinting was thought to be impossible. But the trauma of the abduction, combined with the pod malfunction, combined with—" She gestured helplessly at Bridget. "Whatever you did to calm him." It triggered the response. "I didn't do anything!" Bridget protested. "He was crying. I picked him up. He stopped. That's it." Kael'thor's eyes never left her. "Can you break it?" The healer's expression turned grim. "Not safely. Forcing separation before the bond fades naturally could cause severe psychological damage. Attachment disorders, trauma responses. He's too young. The imprint is too fresh." "How long?" 6 to 8 weeks. Maybe longer." Bridget's stomach dropped. "Weeks?" Cool, she said, voice climbing. "So I'm babysitting royalty now?" Nobody laughed. Kael'thor looked like he was about to have an aneurysm. His claws dug into his palms. His breathing was too controlled, too measured. The kind of control that meant he was one wrong word away from snapping. "This is not acceptable," the white-furred soldier said. "The heir cannot be bonded to a human. What will the council say? What will the other packs—" "Enough, Ryla." Ryla's mouth snapped shut. Kael'thor turned back to Bridget, studied her for a long moment. She could see him calculating, weighing options, hating every single one. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "To go back to sleep," Bridget said honestly. "This wasn't supposed to be my problem." "Name your price." She blinked. "What?" "You saved my son's life. You're keeping him calm when no one else can. I will pay whatever you ask. Just—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Just stay. Until the bond fades. Please." The please sounded like it cost him. Bridget looked down at Torin, sleeping peacefully in her arms. Looked at her crappy freighter, visible through the cargo bay window. Thought about her overdue shipment, her empty bank account, the 12 different things that needed repairs. "How much are we talking?" Kael'thor named a figure. Bridget laughed. Couldn't help it. "You're joking." "I'm not." She laughed again, more hysterical this time. That's more than I'd make in 5 years. 10 years. That's what my son is worth to me." The laughter died in her throat. Kael'thor stepped closer. close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You will live aboard my flagship. You will have quarters, protection, anything you need. You will be treated with full honor as Torin's chosen guardian. No harm will come to you. You have my word. You want me to live on your warship? With you? For 2 months? Yes. Bridget looked at Torin, at Kael'thor, at the soldiers watching her like she was a bomb that might explode. Does this come with hazard pay? Kael'thor's mouth twitched, almost a smile. I think that's included. She was about to say yes, was already opening her mouth, when the alarms started screaming. Red lights flooded the cargo bay. The deck shuddered. Outside the window, space lit up with weapons fire. Status! Kael'thor roared. A voice crackled over the comm. We're under attack! Multiple hostiles decloaking at close range. An explosion rocked the ship. Bridget stumbled, caught herself against a crate, clutching Torin close. He whimpered, but didn't wake. Ryla was already at a wall panel, pulling up tactical displays. Shi'rak Collective. 6 corvettes. Full battle configuration. They're targeting the... Another explosion. Closer. Kael'thor's eyes blazed. They followed us. That wasn't in the briefing! Bridget shouted over the alarms. Kael'thor turned to her, and his expression was pure predator. Get her to the Star Howl, now! Emergency jump protocol. If anything happens to either of them... Understood, Alpha. Ryla grabbed Bridget's arm, started dragging her toward the airlock. Wait! My ship! Leave it! I can't just... Another explosion, and this time the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the cargo bay in red. Bridget could hear the hull groaning, metal shrieking under stress. Outside the window, sleek black ships wove through the Virkai fleet like predators through a school of fish. Shi'rak Collective. She recognized the design from news feeds. Angular, vicious, built for speed and murder. Ryla didn't let go of her arm. Move! Now! They ran. Down corridors that twisted and buckled with each impact. Past crews scrambling to battle stations. Through an airlock that hissed shut behind them, just as something exploded on the other side. Bridget's ears popped. Torin stirred against her chest but didn't wake, somehow still sleeping through the chaos. The escape shuttle was small, cramped, designed for emergencies. Ryla shoved Bridget into a crash seat and strapped her in with quick, efficient movements. Another Virkai, male, younger, with rust-colored fur, was already at the controls. Vorik, go! Ryla barked. The shuttle launched. G-forces slammed Bridget back into the seat. She wrapped both arms around Torin, shielding him with her body. The baby made a soft, questioning sound, but settled when she pressed him closer. Through the viewport, she could see the battle. The lazy Sunday, her home for 3 years, took a direct hit and spun away trailing debris. Her stomach lurched. My ship! Forget it, Ryla snapped, strapping into the seat across from her. You're alive. That's more than most can say right now. This was them, wasn't it? Bridget's voice came out harder than she expected. The Shi'rak. They're the ones who took Torin in the first place. Ryla's expression went dark. The pod was sabotage. They planted it during the transport jump, programmed it to attach to the nearest non-military vessel. Expected him to die in transit or be lost forever. Why? Because a dead heir means succession crisis. Crisis means weakness. Weakness means opportunity. Ryla's claws dug into the armrest. They've been trying to destabilize our leadership for decades. This was just another. The shuttle rocked violently. Vorik swore in Virkai, hands flying over the controls. We've been tagged. Missile lock. Evade. The shuttle spun, diving hard. Bridget's stomach tried to exit through her throat. Torin woke up, looked around, and started to whimper. No, no, no. Hey, it's okay. She bounced him gently, the way she'd seen parents do. We're fine, The missile hit. Not directly, close enough. The shuttle tumbled, alarms screaming, something vital sparking and dying in the cockpit. Vorik fought the controls, muscles straining, but they were going down. Brace! He roared. Bridget curled around Torin, made herself a cage of flesh and bone, and prayed to God she didn't believe in. They hit the moon's surface like a meteor. Everything hurt. Bridget came to slowly, tasting copper. Her head throbbed. Her ribs ached. But Torin, she checked him first, hands shaking. Torin was fine, crying, terrified, but uninjured. Shh, I've got you, I've got you. The shuttle was a wreck. They'd carved a trench through jagged rock, come to rest against a formation of crystalline stone that glowed faintly in the darkness. The moon had no sun, just the distant light of the nebula, painting everything in shades of purple and blue. Ryla was bleeding. A gash across her shoulder, dark blood matting her white fur. She saw Bridget looking and bared her teeth. I'm fine. You're really not. I've had worse. Ryla hauled herself up, wincing. Vorik? Here. The rust-furred guard was already prying open the emergency supply locker. Hull breach in sections 2 and 4. Life support's shot. We've got maybe 6 hours of air in the suits. The distress beacon? Dead on impact. Ryla swore viciously. So we're stranded. The Alpha will find us, Vorik said with absolute certainty. He'll tear the galaxy apart looking. If he survived, Ryla looked at Bridget. If anything happens to the air, yeah, I get it. I'm expendable. Bridget stood carefully, still holding Torin. Can we focus on not dying first? Outside, the moon was freezing. Bridget could see her breath misting in the air even inside the wrecked shuttle. Vorik handed out thermal suits, emergency rations, a medkit that Ryla immediately used to seal her wound. They didn't have much, but they had enough. There. Vorik pointed at a ridge formation half a click away. Shelter. Will be harder to spot, easier to defend. Then move, Ryla ordered, before they send ground forces. They moved. The moon's surface was a nightmare. Jagged rocks everywhere, sharp enough to tear through boot soles if you weren't careful. Bioluminescent fungus grew in patches, glowing soft blue-green, beautiful and probably toxic. The air was thin, breathable but barely. Torin kept trying to crawl out of Bridget's arms to touch the glowing plants. No, she said for the 15th time, redirecting his reaching paws. Kid, you're gonna get us killed. He made an indignant sound. Ryla, limping ahead with her rifle ready, glanced back. Keep him quiet. I'm trying. He's curious. He's the heir to the throne. He should know better. He's 3 months old. They found a cave. More of a crack in the rocks, really, but deep enough for shelter. Vorik went in first, checking for threats. Came back out and nodded. Bridget set to work immediately. She'd done survival training, back when she thought she might work rescue operations instead of cargo hauling. Pulled cargo netting from the shuttle wreckage, strung it across the cave mouth as a windbreak. Activated heat packs and arranged them in a semicircle. Created a space that was almost warm. Torin watched her work with bright, curious eyes. When she sat down finally, exhausted, he crawled into her lap and tried to grab a glowing mushroom she'd stupidly let him get close to. She picked him up. Again. Kid, seriously. And Torin giggled. Not cried. Not whimpered. Giggled. A bright, happy sound that echoed in the cave like bells. Bridget froze. Ryla, cleaning her rifle in the corner, went statue still. He's never done that before. What, laughed? Not since his mother died. Ryla's voice was quiet. Not once. Bridget looked down at Torin, who was now trying to stick his paw in her mouth. She gently redirected it. Maybe he just needed someone who's not terrified of him. We're not terrified of him. You kind of are, though. Bridget settled Torin against her chest. You all treat him like he's made of glass, like one wrong move and he'll shatter. He's precious, Ryla said sharply. The only heir, the future of our people. He's also a baby. Babies need to laugh, need to play, need to feel safe, not like a political symbol. Ryla stared at her for a long moment. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe not, but he's laughing now, isn't he? Before Ryla could respond, Vorik appeared at the cave entrance. His expression was grim. Company. Shi'rak ground forces. At least 12. How long? 10 minutes. maybe less. Ryla was on her feet instantly, weapon ready. We make a stand here. Vorik, take the high ground. I'll cover the approach. What about her? Vorik gestured to Bridget. She stays with the Heir, in the back of the cave. If we fall… Ryla looked at Bridget. Run! Hide! Keep him alive. That's all that matters. Bridget wanted to argue, wanted to say something brave or stupid or both, but Torin chose that moment to yawn, tiny fangs gleaming, and settle into sleep. Okay, she whispered. Okay. She retreated deeper into the cave, into shadows and silence, and waited. The fighting started 6 minutes later. Weapons fire. Shouting in languages Bridget didn't speak. The sharp, wet sounds of claws meeting flesh. She pressed herself against the cave wall, one hand over Torin's mouth to muffle any sound, and tried not to shake. Vorik went down first. She heard him cry out, heard the impact of a body hitting stone. Ryla lasted longer. Bridget could hear her snarling, roaring defiance, refusing to fall. Then silence. Footsteps. Multiple sets getting closer. Bridget retreated further, into a narrow crack at the back of the cave. Torin was waking up, starting to fuss. His eyes began to glow, violet light in the darkness, bright as a beacon. No, 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 please don't. The glow intensified. He was scared. She could feel it, some psychic feedback through their bond, his terror bleeding into her own. Shadows appeared at the cave entrance. Shi'rak soldiers, sleek and dangerous, weapons raised. Bridget had no weapon. Had a busted arm from the crash she'd been ignoring. Had nothing except a baby who was about to give away their position. She did the only thing she could think of. She started humming. Quietly. A lullaby her mother used to sing, half remembered, probably off key. But Torin responded immediately. His glow faded. His eyes drifted closed. He made a soft, content sound and settled against her. The soldiers swept the cave, passed within 3 feet of her hiding spot, didn't see her. Kept moving. Bridget waited, counted heartbeats, didn't dare breathe. And then something dropped from above like the wrath of God. Kael'thor hit the cave floor in a crouch, claws out, eyes blazing. He moved like liquid violence, grabbed the nearest soldier, threw him into the wall hard enough to crack stone. Caught another's weapon, turned it on its owner, tore through them with a precision that was almost beautiful. 4 soldiers, dead in under 10 seconds. He stood there, breathing hard, covered in blood that wasn't his, looked around the cave, saw Vorik's body, saw Ryla, unconscious but breathing, saw Bridget, sitting calmly in her hiding spot, humming to his sleeping son. He crossed the distance, in 2 strides, dropped to his knees in front of her. "You're hurt," he said. First words. Not, "Are you okay?" or "What happened?" Just observation. "Busted arm. It's fine." "Torin?" "Asleep. He's okay. We're okay." Kael'thor stared at her. Really looked at her. Took in the makeshift shelter, the heat packs, the way she'd hidden herself in the one spot the soldiers wouldn't check. The way his son was sleeping peacefully despite the violence, despite the danger. "Took you long enough," Bridget said. And Kael'thor laughed. Not much. A broken, relieved sound that seemed startled out of him. But real. "You're impossible," he said. "I'm efficient." He reached out slowly, like he was afraid she'd disappear. Touched Torin's head with one massive hand. The baby stirred but didn't wake. When Kael'thor looked at Bridget again, something had changed in his expression. Not gratitude, not relief. Recognition. Like he was seeing her. Not as a convenient accident, not as a temporary solution, but as something else entirely. "Come on," he said quietly. "Let's get you both home." 6 weeks later, Bridget stood in the observation deck of the Star Howl and wondered how her life had gotten this weird. Behind her, Torin was attempting to climb a chair. Emphasis on attempting. He'd get halfway up, lose his grip, tumble backward onto his well-padded rear, and try again. Each failure was met with a determined little growl. "You know you could just help him," Ryla said from the doorway. "He's learning," Bridget replied without turning around. "Besides, if I help every time, he'll never figure it out himself. He's the Heir." He shouldn't have to struggle. He's a baby. Struggling is literally his job. Ryla made a disapproving sound but didn't argue. She'd learned over the past month and a half that arguing with Bridget about Torin was pointless. The human had opinions, strong ones, and annoyingly, they usually worked. Torin finally made it to the top of the chair and chirped triumphantly, then immediately tried to grab a datapad that was absolutely not a toy. Bridget scooped him up before he could succeed. "Nice try, Terror." He giggled and grabbed her nose. The bond should have faded by now. That's what the healer had said. 6 to 8 weeks, maybe longer. They were past that. But Torin still cried whenever Bridget was gone for more than an hour. Still reached for her first when he was scared or tired or hurt. Still lit up like a star when she walked into a room. Nobody knew what to do about it, least of all the council. Bridget could hear them now, voices carrying through the ventilation system from the chamber 2 decks down. She wasn't supposed to be listening. Did it anyway. Completely unacceptable. She's human. She has no place in the royal family. She saved his life. That was Kael'thor, voice hard as steel. A deed we're grateful for, Alpha, but gratitude doesn't change biology. The bond should have faded. The fact that it hasn't is concerning. Concerning how? What will the other packs say? What precedent does this set? A human, bonded to the heir, given access to royal quarters, treated as what? Kael'thor's voice dropped to a dangerous purr. As someone who's kept my son alive? Someone who makes him laugh? Someone who's earned her place? Silence, then. With respect, Alpha, she's earned nothing. She's a temporary solution to a temporary problem. Bridget looked down at Torin, who was now trying to eat her collar. What do you think, kid? Am I temporary? He blew a raspberry at her. Yeah, that's what I thought. The observation deck door opened. Kael'thor walked in, looking like he'd just gone 3 rounds with a diplomat. Which, technically, he had. He stopped when he saw Torin. The baby was concentrating very hard on grabbing Bridget's fingers without using his claws, something she'd been teaching him for days. He's getting better at that, Kael'thor observed. He's a quick learner. Bridget grinned. Didn't realize I'd be raising the future king of space wolves, but here we are. Kael'thor's expression softened. You heard the council. Hard not to. You were yelling. They were being idiots. They're scared, Bridget said. I get it. I'm human. I'm weird. I don't fit into their neat little boxes. She shifted Torin to her other hip. But I'm also keeping your son from screaming himself psychic, so they're stuck with me. For now. Something in his tone made her look up. What? Kael'thor crossed the room, stood close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. There's a ritual. For those who saved the heir's life. They're formally bound into the royal pack as kin. Bridget blinked. Like adoption? Like family. It's tradition. It's law. He paused. I'm offering it to you. Not as payment. As truth. Kael'thor. You held my son when I couldn't. You kept him safe when the universe tried to take him. You've given him something I thought he'd lost forever. His voice roughened. You've given him joy. That's more than most warriors accomplish in a lifetime. Bridget stared at him. At this massive alien warlord who was offering to make her family. I'm just a cargo pilot, she whispered. I haul boxes. I'm not this. You're exactly this. Torin chose that moment to reach for his father, making grabby hands. Kael'thor took him gently, and for once, the baby didn't cry. Just settled between them, content. The ceremony, Bridget said slowly. What does it involve? Ritual marks, oaths, witnesses. Kael'thor's mouth quirked. Nothing that will hurt. The council's going to lose their minds. They already have. Bridget looked at Torin, at Kael'thor, at the life she'd stumbled into by complete accident. Okay, she said. Let's make this official. The ceremony was held at sunset, or what passed for sunset on a ship in deep space. The observation deck again, with the nebula blazing purple gold through the viewport. The council, attended. Looked like they'd swallowed glass. Every single one of them. A priestess performed the ritual. Ancient words in a language Bridget didn't speak, rhythmic and haunting. She knelt in the center of a circle of light, Thor across from her, Torin sleeping peacefully in her arms. The priestess touched Bridget's forehead with something warm and glowing. It didn't hurt, exactly. Just tingled. Like static electricity, but alive. When she pulled her hand away, there was a mark. Faintly luminescent, shaped like a spiral. The mark of the pack. Thor bore the same mark. So did Torin, barely visible on his tiny forehead. "You are pack," the priestess intoned. "You are kin. You are bound." Torin woke up, looked at Bridget, at Thor, reached for both of them with all 6 paws and laughed, bright and clear and full of joy. The council looked away. Bridget grinned. Months passed. Bridget learned Virkai. Not fluently, but enough to swear and order food and tell Torin no in 3 different dialects. She learned their customs, their politics, their terrible sense of humor. She learned how to move through the flagship without getting lost, and which council members would actually listen to her, and which ones would rather chew glass. She taught Torin human lullabies. Argued with Thor about proper child-rearing. He needs structure. He needs fun. He needs to learn discipline. He needs to learn to laugh. You overgrown. Somehow, impossibly, she became part of the strangest family in the galaxy. One night, exhausted from a day of keeping a hyperactive 6-month-old from eating everything in sight, Bridget fell asleep in a chair in Thor's quarters. Torin was curled up on her chest, purring softly, one tiny paw kneading at her shirt. Thor found them like that. Stood in the doorway for a long moment, just watching. Then he grabbed a blanket, draped it carefully over them both, and settled into the chair across the room. The door opened quietly. Ryla stepped in, saw the scene, and stopped. "The council wants to know when she's leaving," she whispered. Thor didn't look away from Bridget and Torin. Didn't move. Just watched his son sleep peacefully in the arms of the human who'd saved him. "She's not," he said quietly. Ryla studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Understood, Alpha." She left without another word. Thor stayed. Watched. Let himself imagine, just for a moment, that this wasn't temporary. That this strange, impossible family they'd built could last. Torin stirred. Made a soft, sleepy sound. Bridget's hand came up automatically, gentle on his back, and he settled. Outside, in the docking bay where the lazy Sundays sat gathering dust, a delivery manifest blinked in the darkness. Shipment overdue by 89 days. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. Some things, it turned out, were more important than schedules.